Hello, welcome to the land of Kakiak. My name is Laurel, and today we are continuing on in the Eclectic Manual of Methods. We are still in the first section, reading, and this is chapter 3 of that section, McGuffey's Primer. The use of this book in the series is optional with the teacher, as the readers have been constructed independent of the primer for the accommodation of those who are very much limited as to time. It is, however, strongly urged that the primer be used where it is possible to do so. The lessons are shorter and simpler, and the gradation is less rapid than in the first reader. Hence, the first steps are easier alike for teacher and pupil. The demand for more primary reading matter is constantly increasing, and there are but few schools where it will not be a positive advantage to use both primer and first reader. The plan on which the primer is constructed is the simplest and best known. It applies to the first, second, and third readers as well, and is as follows. At the beginning of each lesson are placed all the new words and all the new elementary sounds to be found in that particular lesson, and no new word or element is given in a vocabulary that is not found in the particular lesson which it precedes. Omissions and repetitions alike have been carefully avoided in these vocabularies, and thus the teacher can tell by a glance at the vocabulary exactly what new work is to be mastered. The articles a, an, and the and the simplest words possible are first presented in both the primer and first reader. New words are introduced on a carefully graded plan. The simplest elementary sounds, the short vocals, etc., are presented first. The more difficult sounds, combinations, and substitutes are then gradually interwoven, and by the time the primer is finished, all the vocals, long and short, all the diphthongs, all the aspirates, all the subvocals except Z as in azure, and all the substitutes except for I for E as in police, CH for sh as in chase, S for sh as in sure, X for x as in exact, PH for f as in flocks, and QU for k as in peak have been presented. It will be noticed that these exceptions invariably involve words of difficult spelling, which should not be presented to the child until the end of the first or the beginning of the second year of his school course. Lesson 1. Call the attention of the children to the two illustrations accompanying this lesson, the cat and the rat, and engage them in conversation about them, such as, who has a cat at home? What is her color? Does she catch rats? Etc., etc., will soon awaken interest in the subject. When the attention and interest of the children are secured, revert to the illustration in the book and resume your questioning in some such way as follows. Do you say that this is a cat? Can it run about? Can it mew? Can it drink milk? Can it catch mice and rats like your cat at home? Is it a real cat then? No. Who can tell me then what this is? Pointing to the picture of the cat in the book. If you do not succeed in drawing out the correct answer, ask the class if it is a picture of a cat. When the answer is satisfactorily given, proceed with the next step. You say this is a picture of a cat. It is not a real cat, but when you look at it, you know at once that it means a cat. Who would like to see a picture of the word cat that you have just pronounced? Pronounce the word cat again all at once. Now, cat. The teacher should now place the word on the board. When this is done, the teacher should resume, pointing to the word on the board. There, children, that is the picture that stands for the word cat, just as this picture in the book stands for a real cat. How do you pronounce this word? Cat. Now, who can find a picture of this word cat in the book? As the word occurs several times in lesson 1, call up several children and see how many times each can find the word in the lesson. Be reasonably sure that all in the class are able to recognize the word at sight before going any further. Next, call attention to the picture of the rat and follow the same steps until the entire class is familiar with the word rat also. Then place both the words cat and rat on the board a number of times and test the individual members of the class, seeing that each can readily pick out the right word when it is pronounced. Vary the exercise by letting one child pronounce one of the words for another to point out, and allow the entire class to correct errors. It will be found that this calling upon one member of the class to examine another will add greatly to the interest taken in the recitation. When the two words are quite thoroughly mastered, it will be time to take up the combinations, a cat and a rat. Turn to the illustration and ask, of what did you say this was a picture? Did you say picture of cat or picture of a cat? Picture of a cat. Note, this is simply to draw out the combination a cat in asking the question. Do not emphasize the a. Write a cat on the board and teach the phrase as you did the single word. Also the phrase a rat. Be very careful in pronouncing the phrase yourself, not to give the A its long sound, a rat, a cat, and do not allow the children to do so. The A should have its obscure sound, as it has in ordinary conversation when one says, this is a cat, this is a rat, or as you would sound the A in along, around, about, etc. This is quite an important point, and if neglected, the children from the very beginning acquire a drawling habit of reading that may take years to eradicate. Drill the class on the phrases so they can readily distinguish each from the other and from the simple words cat and rat. We now come to the word and. Ask the children, what are these animals we have been talking about? If they do not answer as you wish the first time, persevere until they do, and you succeed in getting the natural answer, a cat and a rat. Repeat their answer and emphasize the and a little. Ask, who can tell which word we have not studied? Listen while I say it. A cat and a rat. Give the answer in case the class fails and place the word and on the board. Teach it as you taught the other single words. When it is learned and all the words and phrases can be distinguished instantly, it is time to combine the two phrases, and the children should be able to read them readily as printed in the book. At the close of the first reading lesson, however short it may be, begin the first lesson in writing as directed on page 13 and advance the combination of written words into phrases and sentences as rapidly as the progress of the class will permit. Lesson 2. In this lesson, there are 5 new words to be learned. Begin as in Lesson 1 with a pleasant talk about the illustration. Remind the children of the cat and rat in Lesson 1 and have them point out the cat and the rat in the illustration of Lesson 2. Make up a little story from the illustrations of Lesson 1 and 2, or better still, have the children make up a story of their own. Ask who can point out the word cat in Lesson 2, the word rat, the combination a cat, the combination a rat. Proceed in the same manner as in Lesson 1. In teaching the phrases the cat and the rat, care should be taken not to allow the children to draw out the cat, the rat. These phrases should be pronounced as in ordinary conversation, the cat, the rat, giving the E in the its obscure sound. Write all the words and phrases contained in both Lesson 1 and 2 on the board promiscuously and test the thoroughness of the work so far accomplished by having individual members of the class point out each word and phrase as it is pronounced by the teacher or by some other member of the class. Proceed as in Lesson 1. It is not thought necessary to give detailed instruction for every lesson in the book. If we have succeeded in showing in these first 2 lessons and in the general remarks, Chapter 5, the plan of instruction by the combined method, we are confident that any intelligent teacher can use it successfully without further aid. Lessons 3 and 4. These lessons present no difficulties that need farther suggestion, except a new sound of S in Lesson 4. The teacher should call the attention of the class to the difference between this sound of S and the S in Lesson 2. And it may be accepted as a general rule that whenever a new sound of a letter is introduced, it should always be compared with the sound or sounds of the same letter already learned. In this way, the children will soon become familiar with the force of the diacritical marks. Always teach digraphs as such and never as 2 separate letters. Lesson 5. Every 5th lesson in the book, except the 50th, is a review of the 4 lessons preceding. And as far as has been possible, the new words of those 4 lessons are repeated in the review. These reviews are valuable, therefore, as tests of the thoroughness of the work done and should be made the most important lessons in the book. Hesitation on the part of a number of the class on a review lesson shows a fault somewhere. Either the work has been pushed too rapidly, or some one lesson, perhaps, has not been thoroughly mastered. A little careful investigation will reveal the trouble, and the defect can be remedied. and should be remedied thoroughly before proceeding with the next series of lessons. Lesson 6. In this lesson, we have apostrophe S, the sign of the possessive, introduced. Teach its force and see that the children fully understand it. In succeeding lesson, it is frequently used when the simple nominative is given in the vocabulary. The sound of aw in dog demands watchfulness. There is a tendency to pronounce this word as though it were spelled dog. The words frog, doll, log, god, etc. are similarly mispronounced by many persons. This is not the proper sound of ah. And the same persons who mispronounce the above word should never think of giving the same sound to ah in such words as fog, got, odd, or hod. Insist on the proper sound of ah wherever it occurs. Lesson 19. We should call attention to the sound of a in fast. The sound of aw is the most commonly mispronounced of all the a sounds, and the error is quite common even among the best educated classes. Many who know better give this a the wrong sound through the force of habit and association and the lack of early training. The common error consists in giving aw as though it were ah, as in fat, for example. How many of your pupils make a difference in the a sound in fat and fast? On the other hand, the extremely broad a, as in fall, should be avoided. The word is neither pronounced fast nor fast, but fast? Fast? I'm not sure what that means. I'm not even sure how to say that. About midway between the two. It would perhaps be well to make a list of the words containing this sound of a as the class meets them and give a special drill on it from time to time. Lesson 22. In this lesson, call particular attention to the difference in pronunciation of the words of and off. Both occur in the lesson. Refer to lesson 19 for the phonics spelling of. Lesson 23. In this lesson, one needs particular attention. Lesson 25. Review. The word doll has been learned in lesson 16 and 20. It is here given in the plural form dolls. Other plurals have been learned by the pupils. If the class shows any hesitation over the word, pronounce it and explain the difference between doll and dolls in simple language. Lesson 27. The use of the hyphen is illustrated in this lesson as joining two separate words, mill and pond, making a compound word. See that it is thoroughly understood. A test of this will be afforded in the reading review. Lesson 30, where mill wheel occurs, and also in lesson 41, where lighthouse is given. Lesson 34. With the close of this lesson, all the small letters of the alphabet have been introduced. If the capitals have been studied in connection with the small letters as suggested, and also the script forms of both, this is the place for a thorough review of all the alphabets. Notice the fact that none of the words in the vocabulary of this lesson except we are given in the following review, and the lesson should therefore receive particular attention. Lesson 36. Explain the meaning of the quotation marks, which are here met for the first time. Lesson 38. The quotation marks in this lesson need further explanation. Those in lesson 36 indicated a simple quotation. These represent a dialogue in progress. Lesson 44. Particular attention should be given to the rather difficult words said and once. Lesson 48. Pay attention to been. Lesson 49. The use of the apostrophe in I'll, she'll, and don't demands careful explanation. Write the words I will, she will, and do not on the board. Rub out the letters WI in will in each case and the O in not, and substitute the apostrophe, explaining that the latter takes the place of the letters omitted or stands for them. This ocular demonstration will make the fact clear to the children without much talking. Lesson 51. Explain the hyphen and the acute accent in the word ago. Lesson 52. This lesson and lesson 46 and 49 may be used to advantage as exercises for memorizing and speaking. All right, so that was the manual's instructions. You can see how they were using like the whole word. So let's discuss. I did like that they were giving us some sort of plan for the primer, but they were basically giving us their suggested method for the first, second, and third reader as well. So that's nice. If we set up whatever routine, we for using the primer, the first, second, and third reader, we can just carry that routine through all 4 of those books, which I think is nice. It's easy for you to get kind of like on autopilot and how you do your lessons every day, and the kids know exactly what to expect. So they can just focus on the new information, not, oh, what's this new activity or this new thing all the time, Okay, so one of the things that was kind of popping up on my mind was that, okay, so they're definitely gearing this towards who its audience at the time was schools. So it's for teaching multiple children at a time. And so they have that, okay, children, and they're writing things on the board. And I'm not against writing things on the board. Like I do use my chalkboard. But we may do similar things to what they said, but we would probably just do them in a notebook, right? Or on paper. That's how I find myself. Find myself doing things on paper a lot with my kids, so I don't have to get up and go to the board or whatever. Another kind of red flag was how they were talking about the very first lesson. They just wrote the whole word, and there was no talk about practicing the new sounds first on their own or in isolation. It just says, call the attention of the children to the 2 illustrations accompanying this lesson. Let's just look at it together. Okay, there's a cat and a rat, right? This is lesson 1. And then we're supposed to engage them in conversation about them, to bring so they're using these so I always have used them the opposite way, the pictures. I've used them at the end of the lesson, both as kind of as a reward for finishing their, the hard part of the lesson. They get to look at and explore their pictures, do a picture study and kind of answer questions about them after the lesson. But I don't see that they at all talked about practicing the sounds on their own first, and that they were just looking at the word as a whole. They were calling it a picture, the word itself, and saying it says cat, represents cat, this represents rat. And they weren't at cat, rat, there was no sounding out or anything. So I don't see that they're using the phonic method here. It sounds like they're trying to do the whole, what I think of as sight word or whole word, where they're just kind of trying to memorize the word like a picture, which I talked about that, I think, last time, that's a really outdated method that we now know better. So it's more they were just trying to get them to pronounce the word correctly. So maybe their focus is less on reading and more on pronunciation. Are they just getting them to pronounce things correctly before they teach them to decode words? Maybe that's what they're doing here with this method. I was commenting back and forth with somebody the other day, and we were talking about just, ways we're teaching sounds and stuff. And I forgot to mention, I know I've mentioned this, but it's been a really long time ago. But actually the first thing I did with my younger 2 sons was, I got them off of TPT years ago. There was one, she was called a vowel valley, because the shape of it went like this, it had letters with the diacritic marks on it, but then it would have a picture or something next to it, But they were just practicing, I wanted to make sure that they could at least articulate the sounds, the individual units of sound correctly. So if one of the sounds was ah, I'd say ah, they say ah, and I'd point to an apple. There was a picture of an apple, and it was in apple. And so they'd be apple, right? And then there was another one for the consonant sounds too. But we did that in preschool. I just wanted to make sure that they could distinguish, sounds and physically form them with their mouth. So maybe that's what they're doing here. It is just the primer, And they are teaching one word at a time, right? Or trying to get them to at least, I guess, when they're saying master the words, I think they mean pronounce them correctly. There's a lot of emphasis in these for proper pronunciation, and they call that elocution. I did appreciate the talk about pronouncing, we don't say the, we say the, and if we don't say a, we say I was talking about somebody else in a previous video comment section too about that too. And this is what I was talking about, just like the standard English dialect. Like that's the proper way to pronounce. We have a lot of unstressed vowel sounds. And those are words that are the and are words that are completely, the whole word is unstressed. So the vowel is unstressed. Unless you are specifically putting emphasis on it for meaning. I think I've given this example in videos before, but if somebody said to you, oh, you went on walks on Sunday afternoons, and you actually only had ever gone on one walk on a Sunday afternoon ever, you say, I went on a walk, right? Because you're really emphasizing the word a to mean one. Or the girl that something, and if you're really, really specific, like this would be a girl that you should know who exactly this individual was, you'd be like, yeah, the girl, right? We've all said stuff like that. Is that the girl? Yeah, that's the girl. So it sounds like, I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding what I read, but it just sounds like they're not actually, it sounds like they're memorizing whole words just by sight and not that they're reading them. So I don't teach my kids to read that way. The other thing I highlighted for myself was this whole discussion. I've talked about this word specifically, the word fast, in my video on my primer companion notebook, and how I was like, I've only ever heard it pronounced like a short A, fast. And I was like, I'm going to look it up right now. So that's why I had just changed it. I was thinking it was just more of the way they pronounced it, 100, 200 years ago, whatever. But let's actually look up the word fast and see how it's marked in the dictionary for today. It just says fast. Look, there are no diacritical marks. That's interesting. That would lead me to think that it's just a phonetic spelling and that it has A's first sound, which is ah. Let me check a different dictionary. It just says it the same way. It just says fast, F-A-S-T. It sounds like fast. All right, I'm going to check it on Google. I am getting to the bottom of this. Okay, I'm going to play it.
Fast. Fast.
Can you guys hear that? I'm going to put it on slow.
Fast. Fast.
They're going, yeah, it's like fast. Fast. Maybe it's just, maybe I'm misunderstanding the original diacritic. Maybe it's how long you make the sound. Maybe fast, maybe the ah sound is like pronounced a slightly longer time than like at, fast. I'm trying to see if I say it any different. Whatever, I'm just calling that a short A, but that's too much. Okay. Yeah, so they give some little things to draw attention to. That's nice. All right, so to be totally honest, there was nothing in that section that was helpful to me. I prefer the way I'm already, my reading routine, and focusing more on the phonics straight from the beginning. We'll see what they say if they do something different in their first reader. And we will read that one next time. Bye.